guys, welcome to today's video, which is my lupus 6 years since being diagnosed video. I do these videos every year and I find them really helpful and cathartic to like re-watch for me, and also they're one of the videos that I make where it doesn't matter how many years it's been since I've uploaded it, like people are still watching and commenting and messaging me based off of it, because I think when you get this huge change in your life and go through a life-changing illness or disease like lupus, you do often go through this stage of like searching for help, searching for people that are going through the same thing that can understand you. I definitely went through that, and that's what led me to make my like 1 year one, because when you're in the start of it, you want to know like how this is going to end up, how it's going to go, what it's going to look like in a few years from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, whatever. And you know, the bottom line is that no one can really tell you that. If you live with lupus, you'll know, but everyone with lupus experiences lupus differently. But I do think hearing from other people that are going through it is really helpful in so many ways, and so that's why I continue to make these videos. Before I get into this, if you are new here, please do hit that subscribe button, and if you're new or old, please do like this video, because I make lots of lupus content, and if you guys really like it and want to hear more about it, or have any videos you want me to do based on health stuff, please do leave that in the comments, because I will absolutely do those videos for you. So I have written some notes just so that I don't get lost, but also because I am currently in a lupus flare. I think every time I make these videos I am, because it's in summer. I got diagnosed with lupus on July 29th, 2016. And yeah, every summer is horrific for me, which I'm sure a lot of people with lupus will understand. If you're new here and you don't know anything about lupus at all, I'll quickly just give you a lowdown. So I have systemic lupus erythematosus, which is an autoimmune disease that can affect every organ in your body, your joints, your skin, everything. It's a life-threatening disease, but things have come a long way. I think 20 years ago they used to say that the life expectancy of someone with lupus was 50, and now that's not the case, so that's amazing. You can also just have discoid lupus, and the two are different. I have systemic lupus, and I was diagnosed 6 years ago, and the way I got diagnosed was that so my whole entire life I was a performer. I was a actress, dancer, acrobat. That's what I did my whole entire life from when I was 4 until I got diagnosed, and I was working professionally, performing, and was very active. I'd do 5-hour dance classes at uni. I would do like 10-hour shifts performing, and then go to the gym after or before. I was a very active, fit and healthy person. And then suddenly at work, my body was really struggling out of nowhere. I was really struggling, and it felt like all of a sudden I was moving through cement, where my whole life I had been able to use my body to do incredible things, and like easily as well, always easily. Every movement came easy to me, every sport came easy to me, just being active came really easy to me. And suddenly things that I'd done my whole life I was really struggling with, and I had immense pain. I took myself to a physiotherapist because I thought, what's going on, have I got injured? And she couldn't find anything wrong. And then I went to my GP, because I started also then suddenly getting rashes, horrendous rashes all over my body and face, and just feeling really unwell, just literally felt like I was dying. And it also impacted my mental health. I started having panic attacks. It was just awful. And I went to the doctor and I said all of this, and she just had a bit of a light bulb moment and went, oh my God, I think you might have lupus. And I had only ever heard about lupus, that it could kill you and that it could make you lose all your hair. That's all I knew about it. So I instantly was very scared and panicked, obviously. But she sent me to a specialist, and I was diagnosed a couple months later. So I have made notes, so I'm sorry if I look down at my phone, but I've got a lot to say, and because I'm unwell as well, my brain is just all over the place, so bear with me. But I do, when I make these videos, like to go back and re-watch the old ones, like to see how far I've come or what's changed, but also to see like what's the same, and I can learn from myself in these videos, which is amazing. And so when I watched the one from 2 years after, I said in it that I felt stupid, or that I was stupid, because I didn't know how to ask for help from doctors when I was in a flare. And really that's still the same now. I basically just suffer, which sadly is because of the fact that when I do go to the doctors, I don't get much help. And so it's just more hassle than it's worth, and more stress than it's worth to bother them and go to them. But also, like, it doesn't matter how often I tell my rheumatologist that I'm in a flare, he doesn't class it as a flare unless my bloods are a certain, like, in a certain amount, with like, so they do like loads of different bloods for lupus, and I have to do them every time before I see my specialist. And if they're not past this amount, he won't even write in the notes that I've said I'm in a flare, which is infuriating. And I need to learn how to advocate for myself, specifically with him. I really struggle with him specifically because he's my main go-to guy for my lupus, and also because in the beginning he like was my saviour. He like saved my life, and he was very helpful. But he is very much a bloods man. That's all he cares about. It doesn't matter what I tell him, basically. If my bloods look okay to him, then that's all that matters. But it's infuriating because if you look up anything to do with lupus flares and what is a lupus flare, it's a list of symptoms. It has nothing to do with showing up in your bloods, not that I could find anywhere. And I understand him wanting that, like, proof or backup or whatever. But when I'm sat there in front of you and I'm visibly swollen, there's rashes that you can see and I can see, I'm telling you I'm in pain, like, I don't know why that would mean I don't get any pain because my bloods are a certain way, when we all know that lupus was once known as the great pretender because it can show itself up as a load of other diseases and also as if you're fine. Yeah, so that's really annoying. And one of the treatments for lupus when you're in a flare, and for lupus in general, some people are on them a lot, like long term, is steroids. And I said in the 2-year video that in the start they'd give me steroids whenever I was in a flare, which is true, and whenever I travelled they'd just give me them to take with me, and now they don't. And that's really relevant to the current situation because, yeah, basically I went to see my specialist actually in the winter time, about my butterfly rash, and I said it was constantly burning, constantly itchy, horrendous. I was losing sleep, it was just painful, everything. I couldn't put anything on my skin, blah blah blah. And he gave me a steroid injection, and he told me it lasts 3 months, and this is a great way to see, which is also annoying because he was basically testing me. We'll see, because if your rash goes down, then the rash is definitely your lupus and not just another random rash. Like, he also does that a lot, like tries to say, oh, it's probably not your lupus, and I'm like, what is it then? And then no one has answers. Anyway, he gave me that and it worked and it was amazing. And then I was told, oh, well, we'll do that. Like, when we see you and through summer, we'll give you them. And then the pandemic hit and they weren't giving steroids out because of the way steroids interact with your immune system and the virus, and before they knew enough about it and vaccines are a thing. And anyway, I've only seen him twice now in person, from the beginning of the pandemic. And when I saw him last, again, I told him how bad my butterfly rash is again. I've got a lot of makeup covering it today, which I'll be punished for this tomorrow, but sometimes you just have to do stuff for your mental health, and it does sacrifice your physical health, which is an ongoing thing I have to live with. But anyway, I saw him, explained that I'm in a horrendous flare, blah, blah, blah. So basically my current situation is this. We had our wedding. Obviously everyone is stressed in the build up to their wedding. So I was already flaring, and then we went on honeymoon and we went to the Maldives, which is obviously very hot. I do everything that I'm meant to do. I'm a good lupus patient. I always say, since I got back, they're all like, did you go in the sun? And I'm like, do I look like I've been in the sun ever in my life? You can literally see all my veins. I'm translucent. Like, of course I didn't go in the sun. I stay in the shade. I stay as covered up as possible. I wear giant hats. I wear Factor 50 sun cream constantly. I reapply, blah, blah, blah. I do everything you're meant to do as a good little lupus patient. But it sent me into a horrendous flare, basically. Travel always does. Just because I think it's strenuous. It can be stressful. Like, not the actual time you're there, but the going there and the coming back, and then obviously just temperature change and whatever. Yeah, it just always leaves me in a really bad flare. And every other time they've given me steroids to go away with, but no one wanted to do that this time. And I know a lot of it is to do with the Tories and NHS cuts, and they just don't want to do anything because everything costs. And I know it's like that. I'm overdue an MRI from about 4 years ago because of costs. So one doctor was just straight up about that to me. So, you know, that's the state of things. And anyway, I came back, and the day after our honeymoon, the day after we got back from our honeymoon, I ended up in A&E. I thought I was having an allergic reaction. Basically, my throat completely closed and I could barely even swallow my own saliva, and I couldn't talk, and it was just horrific, along with I was covered in rashes, I was swollen, blah, blah, all my usual lupus stuff. But that had never happened before. Even though, actually, in one of the videos I watched, I did actually talk about my throat, saying that I lose my voice when I get in a really bad flare, which I do, but it's not normally painful. This was so painful, and I could not eat, I could not swallow, it was horrific. I was worried I was having an allergic reaction. I went to A&E. I was there for 9 hours. They did not know what to do with me. They checked down my throat, and they said that everything inside my throat looked normal, and that actually I was so swollen that it had closed my throat, which I didn't even know was like a possibility. So that's really scary. And that's something new that's never happened to me with my lupus, which always freaks me out. And they said there, like, we're going to give you a high dose of steroids and then taper you down. But we can only give you it short term, and you need to see your specialist. Go and see your specialist, like, that's what you need to do. And they couldn't really do much else for me. They all said it's definitely just your lupus flaring, and sent me away. And that was on the Saturday. On the Monday, I called my rheumatologist's office. The secretary was useless and kept just being like, there's nothing I can do. And I'm like, but what am I meant to do? Like, I need help. Because the thing is that annoys me is that they all act like so flippantly about it, but then will also tell me that lupus is life-threatening, it could shut down your organs at any moment. Then it goes from 0 to 100 in terms of you could be well with your lupus and then die from your lupus so quickly. They all tell me that and then go to me, you're fine, don't worry, like, and act like it's not a big deal. And I'm like, I feel like I'm dying, help me. Anyway, so she made an appointment that was like for 4 weeks' time. Then that got cancelled and moved, and then it got put to being just with a nurse. And I kept saying he's going to want bloods, because the hospital I went to for A&E never remembers to send over stuff to my specialist. They say they will, they never do. I asked for a printout, they said no. Like, what am I meant to do? I did everything I can as the patient, basically. I don't work in the NHS, I can't force them to send stuff, and I can't force them to give me stuff. Yeah, so then I saw the nurse, and she was like, there's nothing I can do because you were meant to have bloods done. And I'm like, I'm going to explode out of frustration. And I said, like, I knew that, and I told the receptionist it, and she absolutely refused and said, no, you don't need to. It's been reiterated that you don't need to. And it's always put to me like, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you get bloods? Why didn't you come here? Oh, it's such a shame you didn't come with bloods. And it's like, you do know how this works, right? Like, you work here. I don't. So I don't know how you think I can demand blood tests. I asked and I asked and I asked. And I even called back another time and asked. Yeah, it's really frustrating. And I'm going through a lot of that with the NHS at the moment. In every which way, in a million different hospitals with different doctors, nurses, specialists. I'm going through it with all of them. Just a lot of like blaming me for their mistakes. It's just been failures at every point through this flare. Anyway, so then she sent me for bloods, and then called me after the bloods and said, oh, the bloods are fine, but obviously you've been on steroids for weeks. So they were pointless and useless and proved nothing, just like I said they would. And she made an appointment with my specialist, so it ended up being like fucking 12 weeks since I was meant to see him as a matter of an emergency for this life-threatening flare, and then it's been 12 weeks. And in between that, I saw a dermatologist, which was actually to do with my scalp problems, but she thought I was there to do with my lupus flare, which was weird, because I don't even know how she found that out. And she said you shouldn't have been left just untreated, and she gave me more steroids, and then they were tapered off until the date when I saw my specialist. So then I saw him, and yeah, I went in and said, look, my bloods were high, that's what you always care about, at A&E. My inflammation markers were up, everything was up, like it was high. I also had this. They said it was all my lupus, I need to see you. They didn't give me bloods. I was meant to have bloods. I told them I was meant to have bloods. Like, the bloods you have now in front of you are after 3 weeks of steroids, so they don't really prove anything. I need help. Can I have the steroid injection again? Because it's the only thing that helped me before. And he was like, no, because my theory with that is, my feeling with that is, if I give you it, it's like a real high dose, but then it doesn't last. But I'm going to instead put you on really low dose of steroids. So I'm on 3 a day, every day, for a month, and then take you down. And he's like, because then that'll get you out of summer by the time I next see you. And I'm like, but you literally were the one who told me that the injection lasts 3 months, which it did for me. Like, almost bang on 3 months, my rash started getting bad again after I'd had it. So it's just infuriating. I continue to have to battle at every step, which at the moment is making me never want to go back to the doctors again. And this is literally how people with chronic illness and disabilities die, and how fat people die, because of the way we're treated, and that everything is made out to be not a big deal, and then you die. Because don't we all see it all the time, all these stories of like, I kept going to the doctors and they kept telling me it was just anxiety, and then I died of cancer. Like, it happens every single day. And yeah, I'm getting to the point where I'm beyond frustrated with it, and it's making me not want to bother going. And I literally said to them in A&E, I don't think I'll ever come back to A&E when I'm in a flare again, or for anything, to be honest, after the way I was treated. And I just, because Ben actually stood up and was speaking to the doctor and said, like, you know, it's all well and good you saying that you have to do this and you have to do that, but she also has to manage her illness. Like, she's not just a healthy person who sat here for 9 hours. She's really unwell, and she's getting worse and worse by the minute, being in your uncomfortable chairs with these lights, with no food and drink available, with this, like, it was so hot as well. And he's like, you know, she can't be, she needs to be at home in bed with the aircon on, with this, like, with everything she needs. You're making, like, this is making her worse. We have to consider the overall picture of her health, and that's why I literally said I was going to leave A&E. And the only reason I got help was because I said I was going to leave without signing the form. By the way, that's a top tip. You do not have to sign the form that they try to make you to sign. Basically, that form is to say that you're leaving against their advice, which they kept pushing on me when I said no, like, I'm too unwell, I feel like I'm about to start vomiting, which happens in flares as well, and I don't want to do that here. I want to go home and be comfortable. And no one had seen me at that point, or no, I'd been, like, looked at. You know, they do that thing to appease you with someone who's not actually going to give you any help, and they'd given me fluids which I didn't need, and I felt exactly the same and was getting worse. And so I was like, I need to go. And they were like, you have to sign this. And I was like, no, I don't, because you're saying I have to sign to say I'm leaving against your advice. What advice? I haven't been given any advice. You haven't given me any care or advice after 9 hours, and I can't cope anymore. I'm about to have a mental breakdown. Like, I'm not okay. I feel like I'm dying. No one's helping. It's too hot. Blah, all the things I listed, and I said I'm leaving. And they said, no, you have to sign it. And the thing is, if you didn't know better, you would sit there and sign that. That's so that if you walk out and you die, your family can't sue them because they did nothing and didn't help you. That's what that is for, by the way. And so I refused. I said, no, I'm just leaving. And they said, you have to sign it. I said, no, I don't. I said, in what world would I have to do anything? And they were like, yeah, well, you know, it's just, we're meant to get you to. Yeah, I know you are, but that doesn't mean I have to. Bye. And then suddenly, magically, people are available to treat me. you shouldn't have to do that or go through that. And I didn't do it for that reason either. I genuinely just wanted to go home. I didn't care anymore. I was like, I'm getting worse. They're not helping me. They're probably not going to give me anything anyway. Let's just go. Once they'd said they thought it was my lupus, like, what's the point? Yeah, I'm dealing with a lot of that with hospitals at the moment. Pain and fatigue are still like my biggest and worst symptoms, the ones that affect my life the most. Like, I have a permanent rash on my face, but I'm so used to it now, and unless it's flaring, I can sort of forget it's there now, really. Like, when it's flaring, I cannot. My face is on fire 24/7. It is right now, and it makes me feel so hot. And then also I get this weird thing where like my body can't regulate its temperature because my face is on fire. And so I'll like sit naked by the aircon to cool it down, but then my body's shivering, and then it's this awful, like, yeah, it's crap. But the pain and the fatigue are debilitating. Like, I just, there aren't even words to explain it. And yeah, they're the things that really stop me from living life, and hold me back from things more than any other symptom that I have. New stuff I'm going through is this stuff with my scalp, which isn't really that new. I've actually been going through it for a couple of years now. I basically keep getting sores on my scalp, and then my whole entire head feels tender and bruised and sore and itchy, but I don't have any dandruff or anything. And I kept seeing this awful dermatologist who was useless and kept telling me it was dandruff. And I was like, where? Please. Oh, I don't have dandruff. And kept giving me stuff that wasn't helping at all, or actually made it worse. So I left them and went and found a new dermatologist through my GP, and she was lovely. And my hair's just been falling out at a crazy rate. I've never had such thin hair in all my life. Like, genuinely, my hair's never been this thin in my whole life. And it gets to me, actually, a lot. And I think I've even got my first bald patch at the back of my head, which everyone says they can't notice, but like, anytime there's a picture of the back of me, I can see it and I know it's there, and I can also feel it. The throat stuff is new, like the way that happened has never happened to me before. And also, yeah, just currently dealing with my butterfly rash being atrocious. Yeah, I know it's really bad when it's not just here, but it also is all over my forehead and chin, like basically all over my face. And then it goes bumpy, because the rest of the time it's like I'll have a couple of tiny little bumps, but it will just be very red. But it gets bumpy and angry and like more like what people, I guess, would straight away identify as a rash. And talking about travel, I use wheelchairs to travel now every time without fail, and it's been life-changing. I put up such a fight in the beginning of getting ill to not want to be in a wheelchair. I feel like it was, to me, having to be in a wheelchair was like admitting that I'm disabled from this illness, and admitting that it's got that bad, and like having to then deal with the feelings that come with that. And so I fought it for so long and it ruined a lot of experiences, and also meant that I couldn't leave the house as much, I couldn't go out as much. Like, I use wheelchairs a lot now. And that's the thing people need to realise about any mobility devices. I think people think like, oh, you're confined to a wheelchair, or like you've given up and you're using a wheelchair, as if wheelchairs or mobility aids are the thing that make your world smaller in some ways. But in actuality, it makes your life bigger. It gives you the ability to do things that you wouldn't be able to do without it. Like, at the moment, I don't leave the house at all for days on end, and it's miserable, and it's really affected my mental health and well-being. And that's the case most summers, every summer since I've been ill, but also most flares. But say Ben's going to do the food shopping or something, and I'm like, oh, I could really do with getting out of the house. I couldn't walk around, but knowing that I can get in a wheelchair there means I've got out of the house. It's a change of scene. If you just are like able-bodied and live a normal, healthy life, you're probably mind blown by hearing me say like, oh, I just want to go to Asda. But it's reality. Like, I can't always even manage that, and sometimes you just need to get out of the room you've been locked in for weeks. It's also still, for me though, very strange the way people treat you when you're in a wheelchair. To people, you are either completely invisible, they'll just like walk into you, bump into you, lean on you like you're just a post, or they'll stare and they try and figure out what's wrong with you. And the looks you get as an ambulatory wheelchair user, where I can walk, like where I can get up out of the wheelchair, people are shook by that. It's like, it's a miracle, she can walk. Yeah, so also that, like, if you're watching this and you don't know, not everyone that uses a wheelchair can't walk at all. Like, lots of different reasons to use wheelchairs and other mobility devices, and lots of different reasons that people will need them and can walk some days and can't walk other days. And yeah, that's just as it is. But people are very weird still when I'm in a wheelchair. I think I've got better at real active rest when I really need it since moving to this house. Actually, when we moved house, it was horrendous. We just basically had the most awful moving day of life ever. The company really fucked up, sent the wrong size van, didn't send enough people. We ended up having to get like all of our friends and family to help us. It was just a shit show. We were meant to be in our house and able to start unpacking at 2 p.m. We were moving stuff in from outside still at 10 p.m. And I had taken my morphine for my pain and then was just constantly violently sick, and it landed me in bed, like literally unable to eat for a solid week after we moved in, and I genuinely felt like I was going to die. And in those moments, there were so many moments where I was like, I'm going to get up, or I'm going to eat, or I'm going to do this, and my body would be like, sit down. Nope, shut down, get rid of that idea out of your head, that's not happening. And it forced me to literally live hour by hour and be like, I cannot even try this, and I have to trust that my body will tell me when I'm ready rather than my mind, which is really hard because being bedbound or sofa bound, as I call it as well, or just whatever, worse with your illness, it's really mentally draining, and it can be scary as well. I was very afraid at that time, and just think it's really hard to be in the same room doing the same thing day after day after day after day. It's lonely as well, and it does affect my mental health. And my brain kept telling me to get up and do things, or to try this or try that, and actually no, I had to just listen to my body. And the thing is, after a solid week of literally nothingness, water and bed was it, and going to the toilet, that was literally my whole life. And I couldn't even like watch TV or go on my phone a lot of the time. I literally just had to lay there staring at the wall. So you can imagine how fun that was. But a solid week, and then literally I woke up and my body was like, you could probably stomach some yogurt today, or a dry piece of toast, and you could probably sit upright for the first time in a week. And I did. And then I did that for a few days, and then my body was like, I think you're ready to move downstairs. It blew my mind really, because I've spent the entire time I've been ill really fighting that and like really forcing myself to do stuff before my body is clearly ready. And since then though, I've got better at it because of that. I think I now trust my body more than I maybe did before, and I trust my mind a little less in terms of just like my mind telling my body to do stuff. A lot of that comes from outside noise, ableism, and just like productivity, hustle culture, all that shit. Like, I think it just is obviously in all of us. We live in a capitalist society. It's in all of us to like go, work, earn, always be doing stuff of value. But the biggest thing of value in those moments was rest and to do nothing. And so I've shut out my mind a little bit in those moments and listened more to my body and its signals, and it's been really helpful. I will still say, and I think I say this in every one of these videos, knowledge is power. I really do think you need to learn about your illness, learn as much as you can about it. And you might not be ready if you've just been diagnosed, or maybe you're like me where I just threw myself into wanting to learn all of it. But yeah, just learn about your illness, about what it can look like for different people, and also join online or in real life communities of people that live with the same or similar illnesses and disabilities, because that has been incredibly helpful. Like connecting with people, because I don't have I do now, but I didn't at the time, and for a long time have people around me who were living like me at all. And so it was very isolating and lonely, and you can also end up gaslighting yourself along with the bloody doctors and being like, oh, do I really feel like this? Is it really this? Is it that? Is it this? And then you hear from like hundreds of people online who also have the same thing, who are going through the same things, and you're like, it's just validating, and it's less lonely. In the 4-year video, I said that I was no longer afraid of the sun. Before that, I had, from when I got diagnosed, become deathly afraid of the sun, like just literally hiding indoors all summer, and my mental health took a real crash in 2018 because of that. Because it was that horrendous summer that now this is hotter than that summer, so yay. And I just was in a really dark place because I literally was so unwell for so long, and it just was not letting up. And there's only so much I can take being alone in the dark all the time, really, not being able to do anything. It's just miserable, and I became really afraid of going in the sun at all. The feeling of it, even on my skin, was like sending me into a panic. But by the time I'd got to the 4-year video, I had gone past that, and I was like, I know how to do it safely, and I can enjoy the warmth of my skin. And sadly, I'm here to report that I've gone backwards. I am back to being afraid of the skin, afraid of the sun, because of this flare. I've now been hiding indoors again, and I do freak out at the feeling of it on me. And that's a lot to do with doctors putting the blame on me all the time. Like, whenever I go in and say, oh, I'm in a flare, or I've got this new symptom, or this is really bad, it's a lot of, well, did you do this, and what did you do? And it's like, how about I just have a disease-ridden body that does things that you know that disease does to people's bodies, and that it's not all my fault. And also, like, can we look at me as a person as a whole, and as my health as a whole, and realise that I can't always be locked indoors in the dark on my own. Like, that would be so bad for my mental health and well-being in every other way, and I can't live like that forever. And so sometimes I have to do more and do different things, and I shouldn't be blamed or shamed for that. Interestingly, about the flare and the doctors and everything, in the 5-year video, I said that my rheumatologist, when I told him I was in a flare and it was horrendous in summer when I saw him, he just shrugged and said, I just think summer's going to be like this for you, and he didn't give me any treatment. And that was obviously last year, and like, I'm basically back there again, because I don't think that this low dose of steroids is helping me. My rash is just as bad. In fact, the last few days it's got worse than it was when I saw him. Last year I did, interestingly enough, say that May, June and July were horrific for me, and they have been again this year. And so I can't really blame travel completely on its own, or like anything I've done, because there's a pattern here. And like, that's what I'm saying, that it's so frustrating about the doctors, because they all know that. They tell me summers are going to be bad for me. They tell me summer, like, the sun's awful for lupus, UV, blah, 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 heat, blah, blah, blah. And then summer comes and it's like, what have you done to make yourself ill? And it's like, how about it's just summer and I have lupus, so it's just going to happen. Because last summer I didn't travel, and the summer before that I didn't travel, and yet I was in the exact same boat. So it can't just be me and my travel. And I did say last year that my quality of life was best as a whole, and I do think it's got even better since then, which might be very weird after I've just said how bad everything is. But I think if you're watching this and you're chronically ill or disabled or both, you will totally get that like, things can be awful and also still be better than they were because of how awful they used to be. No, I think with time you just learn balance better, like, and you can't rush it. I've said that in every video. I think you can't rush the learning curve that comes with getting diagnosed with an illness like this, and you also can't rush learning that balancing act. But I really have learned the balancing act much better. I'm not an expert, I'm not there, and I also constantly fall off of it and fail. But I just think overall my quality of life is better, and I've expanded my world a little bit. For a long time I kept saying to all the doctors and in all my videos that my world went from feeling this big to this big, and when I got ill, and slowly it's growing. I'm learning like what I can handle per day, per week, per month. What can I put in place to make days out or activities or things I've got to do easier on me, better on me, less likely to make my symptoms worse. And you have to give yourself a lot of grace. You just have to. A lot of grace and a lot of patience, which I'm not a very patient person, I'll admit that. And it can be really frustrating, and I don't deal with the frustration very well, I don't think. But you have to just be kind to yourself, and I have to keep telling myself when I'm in those moments where I'm like, oh, this is fucking stupid, why can't I just get up and do this, why am I still like this? Because you're really unwell, like you have a very serious illness, you are disabled, like you can be sad about it, but don't be mean to yourself about it, don't be hard on yourself about it. It's not a blame thing, it is what it is, and it's hard, but you deserve grace and kindness and patience. My stomach problem is ongoing. We still don't know what's wrong. I've had gastroscopies, I've had everything under the sun to try and figure out what's wrong. I'm having more tests done soon, and then I think our next step is possibly allergies, or food intolerances again, because that hasn't been done in ages, and it was only done on like 3 things. Even though they're not convinced it's to do with what I eat because of where the pain is in my stomach. But basically, it happened again the other night. For the last, God, has it been 2 years? No, it's been about a year, just over a year. I get these random bouts of like, my stomach goes huge and solid, like so bloated and uncomfortable, to the point where I can't even lie. It's like I'm 9 months pregnant with triplets. Like it's just ridiculous. And I can't like lay in bed comfortably. I have to like use a pillow to move my leg, because there's like not enough space in my body for it to be that big. And then I get really hot and it really hurts, and then I'm violently sick, and then for like 3 days I can't eat or drink anything, and it's just been coming out of nowhere and going again, and I can't track it. Like there's no patterns, and yeah, it's just like basically constant pain in my stomach and an uncomfortable feeling, these huge flares of God knows what, and that is ongoing, sadly. And with my occipital neuralgia, I'm actually due a GON injection in the back of my head. I have occipital neuralgia, if you didn't know. Basically, I've got the greater occipital nerve that goes like around down the back of your head, down your spine, is inflamed and fucked, and I have to have injections in it of like general anesthesia, and steroids I think is in it as well, and like yeah, I just have to have that done. And I had it done in March. And I'm due another one, but then when they called, I had another appointment on the same day, so they said they'd call me back, and they haven't, so I've got to chase them next week. Yay. And I can feel that I'm due one, because it's starting to flare again and like get bad, and yeah, it's annoying. And that ties in with the stomach problem, because basically they thought my stomach problem was internal bleeding, which they still do think I had internal bleeding, but they thought it was caused by my migraine meds, but then they took that off me, gave me nothing else to help, and then it hasn't changed at all. So it definitely wasn't that med, because it hasn't changed. So yeah, that's how things are. To like sum up how I'm doing, basically, I'm the 6th year since being diagnosed. I can't really believe it's been that long. It both feels like the longest 6 years of my life, and also that I was fit and healthy yesterday. Like, it's very weird. I still very much struggle with this concept of old me versus new me, and I still dream that one day I could be able to be back as I was before, in terms of like, just, I was so fit and strong that everything came easy to me, and I think I need to try to accept more and more that that's probably not ever going to happen, in terms of like, I probably won't ever find everything easy again. But easier would be nice, because I do just feel like I'm constantly on the struggle bus recently. I think if you're newly diagnosed and you've just found this video, I want you to know that life isn't over, and that things get better and get easier with the more you get used to your newness and your new body and the new way your body reacts to things, and your new normal, basically. I think accepting that you have a new normal is like a really hard thing to do, but an important thing to try and do. And I am currently in a hard place to be like motivational or inspirational because I am currently struggling so much. I still do have these like real moments of despair when I'm in a very long flare. Like I've been in this flare for 3 months straight now. It's unrelenting, and I've had like random days where I've been able to cope with doing things, but it's not meant that I've enjoyed them in the way I normally would because of how unwell I am. And it's meant that it's been very hard, and then also that the days afterwards will be very hard. Yeah, and so I don't want to like be a Debbie Downer, but I'm currently struggling. That is the reality. I can say though that like overall my quality of life is the best it's been since I've been ill, and that is literally just been because I'm learning to balance everything. I'm learning the balancing act of looking after my mental health versus looking after my physical health, knowing when my body's ready to do more and when it doesn't, and when it shouldn't, and when I should stay completely still. I think learning the things that you can do safely and comfortably on your bad days, not your worst days, because your worst days you won't be able to do anything, and that's fine, and that's what you should be doing, nothing, just rest, active rest. But on your bad days, learn really low effort things that you like doing, that you can do, that still will fulfill you slightly, or pick up your mood, or make you feel like you again. And that's really important, and I've really done that, and I've got my little like book of things that I can go to if I'm like, today's a really bad day but I really can't take mentally just sitting here watching TV again. What can I do? And I have a little pot of things that I can go to, and if you'd like a video on those things and what I do, please do let me know, and I will do that. Comment on below. But yeah, I think I've come a really long way in 6 years. I feel like a completely different person than I was when I got diagnosed, and even the year after, and in a good way, in a really good way. I'm more me than I was at that time. I was very lost when I first got ill, and it was really hard, and I think I have found a new normal. Life can still be fulfilling and joyous and exciting when you're chronically ill and when you're disabled, and when you're both. It really can, and I think, you know, it can feel very doom and gloom, but I'm here to let you know that it's not all that way. Life is ebbs and flows and darkness and light, and but there is still so much joy to be had being a chronically ill disabled person. There really is. Just go through my channel, you'll see all the joy there. And on my Instagram and TikTok and things, like, you will, because I am a joyous person, I think, and I want you to be able to see that, because if you're in a really bad moment with your illness, it can feel like that will never end. But I always have to tell myself, this too shall pass. Nothing lasts forever. So just as like you feel sad when the happy times are gone, the sad times will be gone soon too. So just hold on to that. I'm gonna go. If you'd like to see like how far I've come, or just what's changed, or just how I've been doing and how my lupus has changed, I will link at the end of this video the video from last year, so 5 years from diagnosis, because even in a year a lot has changed, and I just think it can be good to see that if you are a person who's just been diagnosed, or even if you're 20 years in, it can be good to see people with the same stuff changing and learning and growing for the better. And so I'll link that for you, and I would just love for you to check out any of my lupus videos. Really, I've done a lot of videos just about living with lupus. I did a video about when I first got diagnosed. I do constant lupus updates. And also, I'd just like to end this video by saying happy Disabled Pride Month, because it's actually July in the UK. I don't know if it's worldwide, but in the UK it's Disability Pride Month, and not a lot of brands and companies have been talking about it, which has been really annoying, because even last year they were a lot more, so that's really sad. But yeah, happy Disability Pride Month. Like I say, there's lots of pride to be had in being a disabled or chronically ill person. I'm going to go. I hope you're having a lovely day, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!